Okay, so I want to dive back into this idea of eating strategically, and I want to give you more of a visual sort of didactic look at this as opposed to just showing you food. Because I want you to understand that there are a lot of different ways to do this. Not everybody approaches this the same way, but I want to just show you some of the options that you might be able to implement in a very strategic fashion in response to the exercise you're doing. I'm just going to go through an entire day as I might tend to look at it, and these are some of the ways that I might encourage my patients to try to structure their day as well. So I've got 6 meals here for one thing, and so I generally encourage individuals to get their exercise out of the way first thing in the morning, and certainly that's what I try to implement myself. And so on a particular day where you begin with cardio or an aerobics workout to begin with, if you want to really maximize your body's tendency to dip into its stored body fat, I would tend to approach it like this. I would have a protein source and maybe a steamed vegetable. Again, making sure that you get off to a good start from the standpoint of protein. You want that protein in your system because for someone who's weight training, you're always trying to keep your body maximizing your muscle and repairing your muscle. However, the choice to begin with a steamed vegetable, a fibrous carbohydrate, a fairly low glycemic carbohydrate, is strategic. You're choosing to avoid a starchy carbohydrate with the hopes that following your aerobic workout, your body will naturally dip into stored fat to meet any extra energy needs that it may require. On a day that you engage in a resistance training exercise or weight training, in general, I'm going to recommend that you always have at least a protein and possibly a starchy carbohydrate. You might have potatoes, you might have a piece of toast or two, and you might even consider fruit. These are faster sources of carbohydrate or usually higher glycemic sources of carbohydrate, meaning that you're going to get a more rapid breakdown of the food into blood glucose, and your body will readily be able to store this component of carbohydrate to replace glycogen stores after you've weight trained. Okay. Number 2, in between breakfast and lunch, I've circled breakfast, lunch, dinner just to show you the division. In between breakfast and lunch, here I might have a protein bar or a protein shake. Same thing after lunch, protein bar or protein shake. You could have cottage cheese and fruit, or you could do something similar to that after lunch or mid-afternoon as well, if you didn't want to have a supplemental source of protein. But in between breakfast and lunch, in between lunch and dinner, I'm generally encouraging, especially busy people, to consider supplementation with some type of protein source, such as a protein bar or a protein shake. But just remember, you can always include a whole food source of good quality protein at either one of those meals or snacks on any given day. For lunch in general, I would recommend a protein, possibly some vegetables, and maybe if you wanted a starchy carbohydrate, that would be okay at lunch, regardless of whether you engaged in aerobic exercise or resistance training. You need some starchy carbohydrate, I believe. You just have to moderate your intake of starchy carbohydrates and be mindful of how much carbohydrate that you're taking in. Again, starchy forms of carbohydrate, bread, rice, potatoes, desserts, sodas, things like that. Be careful with those. Vegetables, fruits, those you can be a little bit more liberal with, particularly with most vegetables. Okay, for dinner, this is a dividing line in my mind, and for patients who are trying to lose weight, I'm going to encourage them to in general, consider backing off of starchy forms of carbohydrate. So I might tend to have, on a post-cardio day or an aerobic day, I might tend to stick to a protein and some type of steamed vegetable, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, spinach. If you did want something that was more of a starchy carbohydrate, but was also a low glycemic carbohydrate, you might consider having a small sweet potato here because of the fibrous nature of that particular potato. Last meal of the day, last meal of the steak, last meal or snack of the day, in general, regardless of what exercise activity that you engage in, I'm generally always going to encourage that last meal to be as close to a pure protein or an only protein meal, and to be more or less devoid of carbohydrate of any kind, or at least a low glycemic carbohydrate. You know, maybe you could have an apple here along with a cup of low-fat cottage cheese. In general, the last meal of the day for me, I might have a can of sardines, I might have low-fat cottage cheese, I might have a protein shake that is a low carbohydrate variety. And so in general, I just want you to keep in mind, you can manipulate your food, and I think if you want to get good at approaching your daily nutrition with strategy and get to where you are eating really well and you're fueling your body really well, but you also want to be mindful about how that food is impacting your body, learn to get more strategic with the food that you're taking into your body. And so this is just one way that I would approach this, depending on whether I engage in a cardio or an aerobic workout versus whether I engaged in a resistance training or a weight training workout. So just be mindful of that and know that you have some options at any given meal in how you approach the food you're putting in your body.